everyone! Welcome to the Holly Lolly channel. Today, we're going to discuss why some Japanese people don't like foreign tourists. This year, the local authorities in the Japanese city of Kyoto decided to restrict access to foreigners in the historical district of Gion due to the uncontrolled behavior of foreigners in that area. Let's explore what led the authorities to implement such a law. Gion is not just a tourist destination, it is a residential area where local Japanese people and geishas live and work. With the growing popularity of this place among tourists, especially foreigners, serious problems have arisen. Firstly, many tourists behaved terribly. They harassed geishas, took photos of them without permission, tried to touch them, and even attempted to steal their accessories. This is a very rude display of disrespect towards the culture and traditions of all Japanese people, not just those in this profession, but the whole of Japanese society. Japanese people are naturally very shy and reserved, and they highly respect personal space. In this case, it's about others invading your personal space, disturbing your life, your work, and your ability to just walk down the street. Geishas are vulnerable to such attention even though they are not celebrities. For example, often, when someone becomes famous, they face problems of excessive attention, becoming targets of stalking and harassment. But geishas belong to an ancient profession. Every day, they had to commute to work and experienced immense stress due to the inappropriate behavior of foreign tourists. Geishas aimed to maintain their anonymity to focus on their art, and this behavior was both disturbing and frightening for them. Secondly, the narrow streets of this area are simply not designed for such a large influx of tourists, which results in significant noise. Tourists also left a lot of litter behind. We know that Japanese people are accustomed to perfect cleanliness. All these factors created much discomfort for the locals. They couldn't live or work peacefully. To protect the locals and ensure maximum comfort, the Kyoto authorities decided to restrict access to this district. Now, you can only visit Gion as part of a guided tour, where a guide explains all the rules and maintains order before the tour begins. Small groups can still experience the culture and atmosphere of the city. Now, tourists can no longer wander around independently, make noise, litter, take photos, or follow geishas, as this behavior is truly disrespectful. By the way, in 2019, local authorities had already imposed fines on tourists who harassed geishas. But as you can see, it didn't help. I believe it was appropriate for the authorities to make this decision because while tourists come and go, the people who live and work there had to endure the oppressive atmosphere that disrupts their ability to focus on work or simply live peacefully in their homes. So, I fully support this decision and am interested in your opinion. What do you think? Did the Japanese authorities make the right decision? Write your thoughts in the comments and share your views on this matter. In Japan, there are other places where you might be denied entry simply because you are a foreigner. If you weren't born Japanese, you might not be allowed into certain places. Let me explain why this happens. There aren't many places like this in Japan, but they do exist. These are mostly small family-owned cafes and restaurants run by locals who don't understand a word of English. We all know how important responsibility is to Japanese people. It's something they're taught from an early age. If they start a conversation with you, they feel responsible for you and want to make you as comfortable as possible. Because of the language barrier, locals are understandably reluctant to interact with foreigners, as they won't be able to serve them at the level they're used to serving locals. There aren't many places like this, but they do exist. You might see a sign saying that entry is for Japanese only. I know another story. It's about a situation my acquaintance, who has been living here for about 20 years, told me about. She told me about a place in the Asakusa district, which is known for its beautiful temples, where you can rent a kimono for a photo shoot. She mentioned that there's a restaurant, or possibly a few, but she told me about one in particular where there's a sign saying that only Japanese people are allowed in, which means no entry for foreigners. I was surprised and asked why this place isn't open to foreigners. She said she went there with her friends and they were asked very politely to leave. She asked why and explained that she speaks and understands Japanese well. She started showing off her Japanese skills, and the restaurant staff started apologizing and explaining the situation. In some places in Japan, as soon as you arrive, they bring you appetizers costing around 500 yen, which are already included in your bill even before you place an order. It's like an aperitif, where you get a set of different appetizers, and whether you want them or not, they are included in your bill. As we know, locals tend to steer clear of conflict and avoid confrontation. Some foreign customers were pretty annoyed at having to pay 500, 300 or 400 yen for something they hadn't ordered, namely the appetizers. Some people didn't want to eat the appetizers at all. Different people reacted in different ways, but they were all foreigners because the locals never argue or complain and just accept things as they are. As a result, some restaurants have even decided to ask foreigners not to visit their establishment. My friend there said she was fine with the rule, happy to pay for the appetizers, and was allowed to stay. So she did get in, but I asked her to explain why such establishments might exist. I talk about this in my videos to make sure I'm not misleading people, so I asked her why this happens, and it turned out she had this story from her life. Cultural differences also play a big role. In Japan, there are lots of specific places with lots of traditional Japanese customs and rules. It is important to adhere to certain etiquette there to avoid offending or upsetting anyone. Often foreigners don't know these rules and don't mean to offend the Japanese, but their actions can often come across as insulting to the Japanese. They behave in a way that is not proper according to etiquette. Some smaller businesses have been around for decades and have regular customers. To make sure these people keep coming back and bringing their friends and family, the owners of these places decided to limit access to foreigners. This helps keep things peaceful and comfortable for their valued regular customers. I know it sounds a bit unfair, and it's tempting to say that not all foreigners are the same, but it's usually because of some negative experiences. If a Japanese person working at the establishment had a bad experience with foreigners behaving inappropriately, it can affect their overall attitude. So some Japanese business owners have decided to restrict foreign entry to their establishments. Of course, from the previous story about the Gion district, it's clear that not all foreigners behave appropriately. Japanese people, no matter how they feel, won't disturb the comfort and peace of others, which unfortunately can't always be said about foreigners. Japanese people are proud of their unique culture and traditions, and a large number of foreigners can be perceived as a threat to these traditions and their unique identity. In most tourist places in Japan, Tokyo, and other large cities, foreigners can feel comfortable anywhere and visit any establishment. Please don't think there are many places where foreigners aren't allowed. I've only shared a few known cases. I've been living in Japan for 3 years now, and I've never encountered an establishment that wouldn't let me in. So, you can relax. I also want to say that Japanese people are very friendly and are keen to make you feel comfortable. If it's a tourist spot and you enter an establishment, chances are there will be a menu in both Japanese and English. If there's no English menu, don't worry, you can always use a photo translator to understand what you'll be eating. One of the main reasons for Japanese mistrust of foreigners is fear of the unknown. After all, a Japanese person always has a rough idea of what to expect from another Japanese person. They know they'll always treat each other with respect, won't contradict each other, and won't create conflict situations. It's not always the case with foreigners, though. Japanese people often feel uneasy around foreigners because they find it difficult to predict how we will behave, what we will say, or what we will do in any given situation. There are lots of rules here, including rules of behavior and rules of etiquette. There are lots of restrictions on what you can and can't do even on public transport, including not talking or making noise. Japanese people are aware that other Japanese people are familiar with these rules and will adhere to them. But there's no way of knowing how a foreigner will behave in any given situation. I'd like to share a personal story that initially upset and offended me. I'll be upfront and say that I now understand that this situation happened because people are often simply afraid of me as a foreigner, and I can forgive them for that. For instance, I live in a high-rise building where it's pretty likely that other residents won't want to ride the elevator with me. Yes, it's a little hurtful. For instance, I'm going to the first floor and someone is already there, waiting for the elevator. I go over to the elevator and ask if I can ride with them to go to my floor. Then, out of the blue, the person changes their mind about taking the elevator. They say they have something to do and either step back or politely let me go, saying, "You go ahead, I'll take the next one," or they might even start walking up the stairs. Or there's another scenario. If I'm standing alone, waiting for the elevator, and I hear footsteps behind me, indicating that a Japanese person is approaching the elevator, I might not wait for them. I've waited for them many times and invited them to ride together, but they never join me. They'd be really polite and decline, then walk past me. So I end up being the only person in the elevator. I know a lot of people say that Japanese people don't sit next to foreigners on the subway. From my own experience, I know they do sit next to me. Needless to say, if there's an option, they'll choose to sit elsewhere if they can. As I'm recording this video for you, I'm realizing how I've been acting. In the few years I've lived here, every time I leave my apartment I think that people probably don't want to ride the elevator with me, so I often opt for the stairs to avoid creating an awkward situation. Or, for instance, if I'm approaching an elevator and I've got a few heavy bags with me, I'll try to make it seem like I'm not planning to get on right away. One way I do this is by pretending to check something on my phone. This way, the other person won't feel like they have to let me get on first and wait for the next elevator. I've been wondering why I do this. It seems like my mind has already made up its mind that no one will want to ride with me, that I should let others go first, that I should just stick to my own company. I'm trying to get to know people who have lived here for a long time. Unfortunately, I don't have any friends here yet. That's just how it is. I'd really like to make friends here, but people seem to avoid me. I think that's probably why people who have lived here for many years gradually start behaving like the Japanese. They soak up this culture and go through some kind of internal transformation. Some cultural values that used to matter in our countries just fade away, and you find people starting to show more Japanese qualities. As I was telling you the other stories, I came to this conclusion. I'm not sure if I'm right or wrong about this, so I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. It's also worth mentioning that in modern Japanese society, there's another side to this. It's great to see so many young people eager to learn foreign languages and travel. In big cities like Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka, you can see lots of examples of foreigners integrating successfully into Japanese society. Japanese people who travel abroad are usually open to communicating with foreigners. It's easy to find common ground with them. They see the differences in our cultures and treat us with ease. I think social media, TikTok, and YouTube are great because lots of young Japanese people are open-minded and accept us for who we are. We can learn a lot from each other, which I think is a great thing. Thank you all so much! Arigato for watching. I really enjoyed spending this time with you. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I look forward to seeing you in the next videos.